1986, director Bob Dylan gave us Monster in the Closet, and this is produced by Troma and is a kind of horror comedy that satirises monster movies, and it had a pretty good cast of recognisable genre favourites of that time, but it is noticeable for having a couple of actors as children who would then go on to become quite famous in their own right. Primarily Paul Walker, who actually starred as the child lead, this young child prodigy who's kind of like a bit of a brain box, who they call the Professor, and he's actually a major character in the movie. But you've also got a short role for Fergie, who went on, of course, in the to find fame in like the Black Eyed Peas, etc. So a couple of big names to come out of this movie. So the story, as I say, is kind of a satire on the monster movies of like the 50s and things like this. There is a kind of reporter that is at the bottom rung of the ladder, and he is given this story to cover about a variety of deaths that have happened in a small town, and it's been put down to like a snake or something. So he goes there, but it's kind of a little bit of a dead-end story. But as he discovers, there seems to be some type of creature that is living in another dimension and using these closets to come out and attack people. Inevitably, this story can end up being quite big, and there's more deaths. The army gets involved, and this creature may have some kind of interesting and thinly disguised motivations. What will happen? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So yes, this is a satire. There are a few jokes here that I do think are quite funny and still actually remain funny of today. For example, there's a scene where there's a woman showering. Stella Stevens, I think the actress is. And it's only a small role, but it's set up to be like one of these kind of jump scares. And I won't say exactly what happens, but it's quite a funny sort of subverting of your expectations, so to speak. So there's a few elements like this, but the story still plays relatively straight. And the movie is quite sort of clever in a way that some things will go over your head. The whole in the closet thing is obviously slang for something else, and that is kind of hinted at in the movie, whilst the monster seems to take an attraction to our male lead. And this male lead is kind of like this nerdy, mild-mannered reporter who, when he takes his glasses off, is like super hot. And I actually thought it was kind of a little bit of a joke about Clark Kent, because this guy's surname in the movie is called Clark. And I thought when he takes his glasses off, they were kind of having a little pop at Superman, but I think it's something else. Anyway, so so the movie has got some kind of quite funny moments, and I do think it's actually somewhat kind of clever in certain aspects of having these kind of themes that you might not know. I saw this movie when I was quite young, because it was a 1986 movie, and I didn't pick up any of this stuff. Only rewatching it now, it kind of makes more sense if that goes on. But there's still even outside the comedy aspect, I do think this movie is quite a fun and engaging movie, albeit a little bit of a silly one. But yeah, the creature looks pretty good, actually played by Kevin Peter Hall, who went on, of course, to star in Predator as the Predator. He's a practical realised suit with kind of like a gaping maw, and they've kind of given him like a monstrous look, but kind of like sad eyes, if you know what I mean. So I think the movie's the kind of the prosthetic and the kind of the monster design here is quite funny. He's got this big gaping maw with like a kind of alien style sort of inner mouth on a stalk that kind of shoots out. Pretty fun looking monster, I've got to say, that we actually see quite a lot of. So some of these films you end up only seeing the monster in the last kind of 10 minutes. Not the case of this one. We see it quite a lot, and he's out and about. He's also indestructible, which gives our protagonist some real problems about how to kind of deal with him. The acting is obviously sort of a little bit schlocky, but that's kind of on purpose. But I still think the characters are actually kind of quite fun and likeable. And there's kind of quite a lot of scale in this movie. There's a large amount of kind of extras. There's the kind of the, you know, the world panics basically. And I think some of this stuff is probably stock footage. But we even get like the army showed up with tanks and things. And I was like, wow, you know, there's some actual scale in this movie. It looks like the production value was reasonably high. I mean, like I say, I think probably some of these were maybe scenes taken out of other films. But nonetheless, it looks good in this. And you've got Paul Walker as this kind of child genius who's quite a central character, and again quite a fun little character, I have to say. And we get some heroics and things. I thought it was, just generally speaking, a quite sort of like fun and sort of positive movie in a large degree. What doesn't work, the music, the score in this is horrible. Very sort of an annoying score, which is, it's not something I normally notice in films, to be honest with you, but this one really stands out as being quite distracting when you are sort of watching this movie. There are scenes that I think are a little bit overplayed to a degree, and there are scenes that I think are just edited to be a little longer than they wanted, you know, than you really want it to be. The director, this was his only feature as a director. He did work a lot as a second unit director for most of his career, but this was his only feature film as, you know, the kind of primary director. And I think some of the choices you can kind of see as in regards to, as I say, some of the kind of length of scenes, things like this, some of the kind of the repeated elements, like we have 3 or 4 different victims at the beginning. Okay, we get it. So there you go. So there's some choices here that I feel are, you know, maybe could have been a little bit more commercial and things like that. The movie's, as I say, is a kind of a mix of being silly and also still having a coherent narrative where it is an ATB story that you do follow it. And I think sometimes that sort of in the middle, it's not quite a full-on comedy, but it's also, you know, it's maybe a little bit too comedic to be taken kind of completely seriously, leaves it in this kind of, you know, what is it sort of style movie? Is this a comedy? Is it a spoof? Or is it sort of a, you know, just a kind of a movie that we're meant to be taking this kind of somewhat seriously? I feel the movie sort of oscillates between the two and never quite lands on either one. But it's still a fun movie, I would say. An enjoyable, kind of somewhat light comedies to a large degree. I have to say, I did enjoy this movie. I was kind of engaged in the story. I liked the characters. I was amused that some of the jokes, they don't all hit, like I said. And some of the kind of the things that are introduced, like this musical element, which is, I guess, meant to be referencing Close Encounters, ends up being quite a big part of the story, but I didn't really feel it went anywhere. Yeah, so it's a 6 out of 10 though. I would say it's probably kind of worth a watch if you like a cheesy B-movie creature feature. Have you seen it? What did you think? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.